Welcome. Today we're speaking about selective leadership. Selective leadership is crucial in today's ever changing business landscape, as you know. And one of the things that we're seeing with selective leadership, it really can be exactly what you need to transform your organization and move it forward. So, what is selective leadership exactly? It's all about this one thing, making sure you have the right leaders in the right roles. And it really requires intentionality. It requires you thinking through who are your leaders? Why do they need to be in this particular role? Are they the leaders that you have today? Why are they there? So are they there because of loyalty? Perhaps they were loyal to someone else or loyal to another organization. They did a great job, and so you still have them here in their roles, and perhaps they're even effective in that particular role. But when we're posing the question about why selective leadership, or specifically the question that was asked, which model do I recommend? There's not necessarily a model that I recommend, whereas I do believe in transformational leadership. I love inspirational leadership, but really it's about what works for your organization. And that's the essence of selective leadership. What's working for your organization and why? Here's the thing. We can go to another organization and we adopt their strategies, their philosophies, how they do things, why they do things, and we bring it over to this next organization, and it's not necessarily a fit, and we're not seeing the success that we believe we should see. Why is that? Well, of course, the organization has a strategy that's going on, maybe, possibly, I hope, that's taking place behind the scenes that they're not necessarily sharing with everybody. And so, whereas we see that they are intentional with what they're doing, we see the impact. We are not necessarily seeing what they're doing behind the scenes. What's their strategy for leadership? What's their vision for the future? Are they using leaders based upon who they need today and tomorrow, or just today or just tomorrow? So all of that actually matters. And so it's really about making intentional choices in your leadership approach. Again, do you have a leadership approach? So I want to share with you some insights, as well as some actionable, some myths and some actionable strategies, rather, that you can actually use to really move your organization forward. One of the key things I would say is just to remember this particular quote. Selective leadership is not about teaching people, and it's not about keeping people. It's about inviting the right people that you need to ensure you have a successful future. Why do I say this? So often we believe that all we need to do is teach the right people, right? We have the leaders, we've identified them, and now we're just going to give them training. We're just going to teach them our way of doing things and hope for the best, or have expectations that they will actually deliver what it is that we're actually looking for. And sometimes it works, and sometimes we're a little bit disappointed or disenchanted. And that's because we've not really sat down to do exactly as I said before, which is to think about your approach and your strategy. What's working well for your organization? What type of leaders do you actually need? Do you need people who are aggressive? Is your culture fast moving and you like to get things done and you're moving at such a high speed that you really need some of those more aggressive leaders, perhaps? Or maybe you need someone who is more methodical. Maybe your culture and your organization is we're really collaborative. We really like to think things through. We like to work together. We foster innovation. We foster creativity. We really kind of groom our next level of leader here. And so with that, I want you to be crystal clear about your strategy as well as your approach. Now, here's the thing. I was really recently involved with an organization, and they have an appreciation for their style of really only grooming their leaders. So all of the leaders that are in top positions in their organization has come from that organization. They do not believe in hiring people from outside of that organization and putting them in leadership positions. Why? Because they're protecting their culture. And so they are selective in the type of people who they actually hire. It was really kind of mind-boggling to see that all of the leaders at that organization, they all looked alike and they sounded alike and they acted alike. And they said that they were really good friends, even outside of the workplace. And so they were intentional. They were selective in who they actually hire. They wanted people who thought the way they thought. They really weren't interested in bringing an outside perspective and sharing a fresh perspective or another insight or another way to do things. Everything that organization did as it relates to leadership and strategy and culture and moving forward in their vision and their strategy came from someone who was pretty much within that particular organization and who had been, I would say, raised up in that organization, groomed within that organization. So they were laser focused on here's what we actually like. And this is the model that's working for us today. It's worked for us yesterday. And we truly believe it will continue to work for us in the future, even as we grow and even as we expand. So I want you to think about that when you're thinking about, again, what does selective leadership mean for your organization? Now, here's the thing I love to say, and I really stand by this. Everyone should not be a leader. Just because someone is charismatic, they do a great job, they can deliver results, does not make them a leader, make them qualified to be a leader. And I stand firm on the belief that not all leaders can be trained and taught. There are some people who you fundamentally need to look at and examine. And as you assess them and their strengths and their behaviors and their likes and their dislikes and how they engage with people, how they get the work done, you may come to find this person is not necessarily wired for leadership and influence. Some people, I call it drunk off of power. They become drunk off of power. And if that doesn't work for your organization, that can be a disaster, right? They can do you more harm than good. Now, can they be trained? They can go to training. Can they be taught? I believe anyone and everybody can learn. But should they lead people? It may be best that they lead processes and systems, because this is the thing. We manage processes. We lead people. And for you to be able to lead people, then it is critical that you understand that they are human. They are a person. They're not perfect. They're going to make some mistakes. They will have their own opinions, hopefully. They have their own style and approach in how they do things. And what we see sometimes, not all the times, but every now and then, we see that some leaders believe that if you're not thinking the way I think, you're not doing it the way I do it, then I really don't have an appetite for that. And you're not necessarily bringing others to the table. And so I want you to begin to think about, what is your process for assessing leaders against your established criteria? Again, you've got to have the criteria to understand what you're looking for and what's going to work for your organization. But then how do you regularly assess those leaders? How do you regularly ensure that they are producing the desired results and they're creating more value than doing the organization and its people harm? I want you to begin to think through these leaders. How adaptable are they? I spoke about this early, I believe last week as well as Monday. Adaptability ensures that leadership is successful and that you can get the results. You have to be able to adapt and flex. And there's some people who struggle with that, right? They are, hey, 1 + 1 always equals 2. This is the system. This is the formula. This is the way we're going to do it. And so I want you to really think about a culture of adaptability and ensure that your leadership evolves with the ever-changing needs of the organization. Leadership is about exclusion. It's not about exclusion, but it really is about, again, ensuring you have the right capabilities. And what are those capabilities? I want you to think about the need for just the ongoing, I keep saying this and I can't say it more than enough because I really want to drive this home. The ongoing evaluation and adjustments that must take place for your organization. I love when leaders can embrace a fresh approach, a different way of thinking, rich insights. What does the data actually say? And take all of that and formulate that to determine the method and the path forward. And so I want you, again, to think through, will that work with where you are? Will that work with how you have traditionally done things? And that approach will give you the insights and help you to identify the challenges of inconsistent leadership within your organization. And it really ensures that your leadership and your leadership team, rather, and your organization has a unified and simplified set of criteria to move you forward. See, without that, you will begin to see that there are inconsistencies in experience when it comes to teams and people, and that can create some risk for your organization. And as a leader, one of the things that you want to do is to mitigate risk. So, how are your leaders actually performing? How are they aligning with your criteria? In what ways can your leadership selection process actually be made more transparent? And with that, again, you're sharing how you actually assess, when you actually assess, how frequently you assess, what are you actually looking for, what are the results you would like to see, and are you inclusive? Are you including people of different backgrounds? Again, remember the organization I spoke about earlier. Everyone at that organization, they look alike, they sound alike, they talk alike, they think alike. And so, where is the diversity there? When new people come in, they want to see someone who looks like them. They want to see someone who can relate to where they are, to how they think, how they may see things in a different way. So, as we're talking about how organizations, it's imperative for you to be selective. And I'm seeing that because some organizations actually have a number of assessments that they actually use or tools to assess their leaders and who's actually coming into the organization, who they actually promote, why they say a person is not going to be successful at that particular organization, right? They kind of figure it out and they have it down to a science, and they're using the science to help guide their decisions, to help determine who will actually lead the organization. And I want to say this as well. When we're talking about selective leadership, I spent quite a bit of time talking about who should actually lead. But I also want you to be just as intentional and ask yourself the same questions when we're speaking about where they actually lead. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to tell you. We see traditionally a lot of women are leading in the HR space, those soft spaces, right? So they may lead in HR. But what if you have a leader who is strong in operations, and she would be a much better fit in in operations, maybe manufacturing, we'll just say that, or engineering or something of that nature, than a customer service call center or leading HR or marketing, those softer skills. And so look at the personality, think through the background and the experience of that person, and help and allow that to help you determine with the skill sets that we actually have, the challenges that we're facing, the goals for the future, our current priorities. Where do we place the people on the wall? Where does this person go? And we're sitting in them here, not because it's an opening, but because it's the best fit for our organization. And as we move people around, don't be afraid to shift people, to challenge them to grow beyond the norm. So don't be afraid to shift them and to move them, and understand that when you're shifting them and you're moving them and you're being selective with where they actually serve and where they actually lead, that it's a great fit for the organization, and it's also a great fit for that particular person. See, that's what selective leadership really is about. It's really, again, some people call it being intentional, but I say selective. It is absolutely intentional. Don't get me wrong. But again, you're still keeping it with the lens of we're selective, we're intentional, we're methodical at who we put where and why we actually put that person there. And here's what we're looking to see. I love selective leadership for that particular reason. So when we're talking about growing your organization, moving them forward, we're talking about how your organization can actually lead the market. Part of that is getting crystal clear on, again, these are the characteristics, the traits, the behaviors that we actually value. Here's what we're not going to stand for. Here's what's not accepted here. I had a conversation with a leader in an organization earlier this week. And as we were speaking about our regular coaching conversation, I loved how she actually mentioned one thing in particular. And what she said was, with this particular leader, what I saw during a team meeting was something I would never want to see. I believe the person bordered on discrimination for a number of reasons. And when I thought about the culture of this organization, I thought about who was actually on the line, the feedback that actually came to me. What I determined was that as a leader, we too must again be selective in what we actually tolerate. And when we're thinking about what we tolerate and what we allow, I made a conscious decision then, she said, that I was going to contact our HR team and begin to have the conversations with them about not only what happened, but where do we actually go from here? What does this actually mean? And with the understanding that it's unacceptable and it will not work and it cannot work. That's what selective leadership is really about. It's protecting that and understanding that it's not about you getting rid of the wrong people. It's not about you saying only a few people can actually lead, but it's about saying, hey, this is our path forward. This is how we're going to be successful. This is what we will actually do. These are the type of behaviors that we actually appreciate. This is what we want to see. And that really takes courage to do that, because some people are going to be disappointed, especially as you begin to shift people and you're moving them around and you're challenging them to do things that they're not comfortable with. It can create some frustrations there, but that's okay. That's why I love selective leadership, because it's really about, again, the bigger picture, the bigger vision. And only then can we really have the conversation about inspirational leadership or transformational leadership or situational leadership. It really starts with getting your selections right in the very beginning. And once you have assessed them properly and you're reassessing them, that's when you can begin to identify and develop. That's when you can begin to, again, use your metrics to determine how successful are they. If you want some more information, I have a whole model that I've actually created around the very thing of selective leadership, because it's really how we're going to be able to move our organization forward, how we're going to be able to impact employees and our customers. You can be, as I shared with somebody earlier today, you can absolutely be customer focused and employee centric at the same time. They're not necessarily independent, but they really work hand in hand. And once you get that clear, that you're both a customer focused as well as employee centric, and you're using that, that's when you can have those tough conversations and add yourself to what's actually happening in the greater scheme of things, right? I want to answer another question. Another question that we have come in is about what leadership traits do I actually value? I've kind of answered this before, but I'm going to go ahead and answer this question again. It really, again, depends upon the organization. Now, I truly believe in my heart of hearts that every leader should be respectful. I believe that every leader should have a vision. Every leader should develop others. Every leader should be able to get results and the desired outcomes, provided they have the right people, the right tools, the right resources. I believe the leadership is a responsibility. And so we hear cute, catchy little things that leadership is an art. Yeah, it is an art to it, but it's also a responsibility. And you have a responsibility to your employees. You have a responsibility to your shareholders or your stakeholders. You have a responsibility to your customers. You have a responsibility to your employees' families. You have a responsibility to the economy. You have a responsibility to the nation in which your organization provides goods and services. And you have a responsibility even to yourself and your family. So it's not for the faint of heart. And that's, again, why we're talking about selective leadership, because we want to understand that it's more than just you coming to work and getting results. It's much more than that. It really is about really so much more. It's bigger than you, and it has a trickle down effect for every decision that a leader makes. Every person that you place in a leadership position, it has a trickle down effect, and it's affecting and impacting much more than you can see, or much more than we will see with the naked eye. It impacts hearts, it impacts health, it impacts economy, it impacts your children, it impacts, again, what happens with your customers, because for every, you've heard it, for every action, there's a reaction. And so those are just some of the traits and behaviors. Come on Mondays. On Mondays, we have Maximizing Mondays for Intentional Leadership, though I'm really thinking about moving that to Tuesdays. But one of the things there is when you come there, we begin to see, and I share with you some of the, I would say, characteristics, the traits, the behaviors that I actually value and what I've seen appreciated in leaders, and actually delivers the results that you want to see and that you actually need for your organization. So it is something, a place where it's just quick. Normally it's 5 minutes or less. I'm pretty sure you have 5 minutes. So come for 5 minutes or less, watch the replay, share the recording, and you're going to learn about those traits and behaviors and why it matters and why it works. And that's the thing, is why it matters and why it actually works. And those are the two things that I think that if we keep that in mind, we can help us to be able to communicate effectively when, as a leader, you're selling your belief or what you actually do. I am Dr. Sherilyn Payne. I have a great resource for you. If you would like to learn more about selective leadership, I have a tool. It's actually a playbook. And I think this playbook would be essential for you, because it's really about how the top organizations actually hire their leaders and develop their talent, so that you can use this and have the conversations within your teams, with your leadership teams, about what you're actually doing. Are we doing some of these things? Why? Why not? Can we? Can we not? If so, when and how? What will we actually need? If you would like that tool, just send me a message and say playbook. And when you say playbook, I know exactly what you mean, and I will be sure to get that over to you as soon as possible. If you would like to have more conversations, maybe a one-off conversation, one-on-one, about how I can help you really develop your leaders within your organization, create a strong leadership approach and strategy that works for your organization, and it's also based upon research while being practical and affordable, reach out to me. Send me a message, spayne@smpistrategies.com, and I would love to have that conversation. It'll be brief, but it will be action-packed. It will be valuable. You'll walk away with some rich insights, and you'll know exactly what you need to do to be able to move your organization forward and develop the leaders you need, while also creating the company talent loves. Now, we won't be here next week, but don't forget to come the week after. So we won't have an open office hours next week. I'm giving you the time off to share with your families, but we will be back the following week. And I would love to have your questions. If you want to shoot me over a question, use this email, leadership@smpistrategies.com. Or you can send me a DM me on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to get your question, add it to the queue, and I will message you and let you know, or a member of my team will message you and let you know when your question is being asked. And it's the focus of an open office hour session or Q&A. And you do not have to be present to take place in that, but we will make sure you have the information you need to move forward. Again, I'm Dr. Sherilyn Payne. If you want the playbook, send me a message, playbook, and I'll be happy to get that over. And I will see you guys back here in 2 weeks.